Silence is the loudest scream. That line alone can flip your perspective, my friends, because silence isn't nothingness. It isn't a weakness. It isn't a retreat. It's a roar so powerful that it shakes the mind more than words ever could. And tonight, that roar isn't echoing in your chest. It's echoing in theirs. At night, when the world slows down, when the traffic outside fades, when even the clock on the wall seems to breathe slower, that's when your silence hits the hardest. That's when it becomes the weight that presses on their mind, keeping them awake, restless, unable to escape the very presence you left behind. Stay with me, because in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why silence is not a game. It's discipline, it's control, and it's the one thing that will keep them tossing and turning while you rest in peace. But before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop one powerful word in the comments right now. Discipline. Because that's what this whole journey is about, my friends. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into a room where a painting hung for years, the centerpiece of the entire space. One day, it's gone. The wall looks bare, awkward, incomplete. Your eyes keep going back to that spot as if searching for something that isn't there anymore. That's what your silence feels like to them. You're not just absent. You're the missing painting their eyes can't stop searching for. And the longer they stare at the emptiness, the heavier it gets. But here's the lie people try to sell you. They'll say silence means you've lost. They'll tell you silence makes you weak, that it proves you care less. Let me break that lie right now. Silence is not weakness. It's power under control. It's like holding a sword steady in its sheath while the other person swings wildly in the air. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's what you're doing when you choose silence. You're refusing to be dragged into chaos. You're refusing to let someone else dictate your worth. Now think about this. At night, their bed becomes a battlefield. The pillow is soft, but their thoughts are sharp. Every time they turn, your absence turns with them. They replay the old conversations, the little moments, the laughter, the arguments, and the silence makes those memories louder. While you're out here resting easy, their own mind becomes the ghost that keeps them awake. And let me sprinkle a little fun here, folks. You ever notice how when your phone battery dies, you start imagining all the notifications you must be missing? Suddenly, your phone becomes the most important thing in the world. That's what silence does to them. They imagine the missed notifications. They imagine the messages you're not sending. They imagine you living, breathing, moving forward without them. And it eats at them because they can't scroll past your presence. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about cruelty. This is about reclaiming your power. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And freedom, my friends, doesn't come from chasing, begging, or explaining yourself into exhaustion. It comes from discipline, from standing so firmly in your peace that nothing outside can shake you. That's the lesson here. So as we dive deeper into why your silence keeps them awake at night, hold on to this truth. Silence isn't emptiness, it's presence in its strongest form. And your discipline tonight is their sleeplessness tomorrow. That's the power you carry. Now, before we go further, I want you to do two things. First, press that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Second, drop this affirmation in the comments. Strength in silence. Write it, show it, claim it. And stay with me, because what I'm about to share will change the way you see silence forever. Number 1. The echo of absence. What is not said speaks louder than what is shouted. My friends, that's the kind of truth that shakes people to their core. Silence isn't nothing. It's the heaviest sound in the room, and when you hold it with discipline, it echoes inside their mind long after the conversation ends, long after the door has closed, long after the lights have gone out. At night, when distractions fade and everything slows down, that's when your silence becomes unbearable for them. That's when the echo grows louder. Imagine this with me. You've walked into a familiar room every day for years, and on the wall hangs a massive mirror. You see yourself in it daily. You get used to its presence. Then one day, the mirror is gone. The wall is empty, bare, almost awkward. And now, every time you pass that wall, your eyes go back to it, searching for what used to be there. You can't ignore the space. You can't forget what once filled it. That's how your silence works for them. It's not just emptiness. It's a missing presence that draws attention more than if it were still there. And here's what begins to happen. They lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly your silence isn't quiet anymore. It's loud. It's screaming questions into their mind. Why aren't you calling? Why haven't you reached out? Why does it feel like you let go so easily? Folks, this is where fear creeps in, because the human mind hates empty spaces. It fills them with possibilities, with doubts, with memories. They start to replay old moments, conversations, laughter, even arguments. All of it rushes back because your silence created the space for those echoes to return. Now let me break a lie for you. People will tell you silence means you're weak, that it means you've got nothing to say, that it means you've surrendered. But that's a lie created by those who fear silence themselves. The truth? Silence is presence. Silence is control. Silence is your voice without words. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in relationships, that means you don't react impulsively, you don't beg when they withhold, and you don't break your discipline just because you feel uncomfortable. Instead, you let the echo of absence do the talking. Think about this, my friends. When noise is constant, nobody notices it. But when the noise suddenly stops, everyone looks up. That's why silence carries more weight than words. It's the pause in a song that makes you lean in. It's the sudden hush in a crowd that makes you wonder what's coming next. And for them, your silence is exactly that. A pause so loud they can't escape it. Questions flood their mind. Is this strength? Is this indifference? Have they moved on already? Or are they simply too disciplined to break? These questions don't go away. They multiply, they echo, and while they search for answers, they're forced to face something they didn't expect. You're no longer giving them the validation they once took for granted. That's the echo of absence. Here's the fear no one talks about. They realize that silence doesn't just mean you're gone, it means you might be stronger without them. They wonder if your silence is a sign of peace, of growth, of freedom. And that thought cuts deeper than any angry word ever could, because anger says you still care, begging says you still need them. But silence leaves them in the dark, wrestling with their own thoughts, and that darkness keeps them awake. And don't think this is easy, folks. Discipline never is. It's hard not to react. It's hard not to send that late-night text just to relieve your own discomfort. It's hard not to prove your worth with words. But Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you hold your silence, you're proving mastery, not over them, but over yourself. That's the battle you win. Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine standing at the edge of a canyon. You shout into it, and seconds later the echo returns. It's your own voice bouncing back at you, only louder. That's exactly what your silence becomes for them. Their own words, their own decisions, their own choices bouncing back in the quiet, amplified until they can't escape them. You don't need to remind them of what they lost. The canyon does it for you. Your silence is the canyon. Their thoughts are the echo. So why is this so difficult for them to handle? Because people expect noise, they expect reaction, they expect a script. When the script breaks, fear enters. They thought you would argue, plead, chase, but instead you chose silence. And that choice flips everything upside down. The power shifts. The control slips from their hands. And suddenly, they're the ones awake at night, while you've already learned to rest. Listen closely, my friends. Your silence isn't about punishing anyone. It's about proving something to yourself. That you can stand calm when storms rage. That you don't need validation to know your worth. That peace isn't given to you. It's built within you. That's why silence is powerful. It reveals your strength without you lifting a finger. So when the nights feel long, remember this: your silence isn't emptiness. It's presence in its strongest form. It's not weakness. It's proof of control. It's not retreat. It's evidence of discipline. And while they toss and turn with questions they can't silence, you rest in the fortress of your calm. Now, I want you to write this affirmation in the comments. My silence is power. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world. Let it echo back to you. Number 2. The mirror of their choices. When you look into the mirror, you see not only what you are, but what you've become. My friends, silence doesn't just create space. It doesn't just echo through the night. It does something even more dangerous for them. It forces them to look into the mirror of their own choices. And let me tell you, that mirror doesn't flatter. It doesn't lie. It doesn't let them escape. It shows them exactly what they did, what they lost, and what they underestimated. Think about it. Words can be denied, arguments can be twisted, excuses can be built like walls to block out the truth. But silence has no script to fight against. It leaves them with nothing but themselves. And that is the hardest battle of all. When you stay silent, when you choose discipline instead of reaction, you hand them the mirror and say, look, face yourself. And at night, when distractions fall away, they are forced to do just that. Imagine a room stripped of sound, no music, no noise, just stillness. In that stillness, even the smallest creak of a floorboard, even the sound of your own breath feels magnified. That's what silence does to them. It magnifies the truth. It magnifies their doubts. It magnifies the weight of their decisions. And while they thought they could walk away clean, they now see every crack, every flaw, every misstep staring back at them in that mirror. And here's the lie people often believe, that walking away makes them powerful, that leaving puts them in control, that silence means they've already won. But let's break that lie right now. Walking away may feel like control in the moment, but silence has a way of eroding that illusion over time. Because the longer you stay disciplined, the longer you hold your peace, the heavier that mirror becomes in their hands. And eventually, they stop seeing power in their choice and start seeing the cost. Folks, you know what's unsettling. At first, they convince themselves, I did the right thing. It's better this way. I had to let go. They might even laugh with their friends, tell stories, put on a mask of certainty. But here's the truth. Masks slip when the lights go out. When it's just them and the silence, the confidence they put on during the day starts to crumble. And the mirror shows them not strength, but second-guessing. Not peace, but doubt. Not freedom, but regret. And that's the beauty of silence. It doesn't give them anything to argue with. If you had shouted, they could call you bitter. If you had begged, they could call you weak. But when you're silent, they have no labels, no script, no weapon. They're left alone, staring at their own reflection. And my friends, that reflection can cut deeper than anything you could say. Picture this. You're standing before a mirror after years of ignoring your health. Suddenly, you see the toll, the lines on your face, the wear on your body, the truth you've been avoiding. It's not the mirror's fault. The mirror didn't create the truth, it just revealed it. That's what your silence does. It doesn't create guilt, doubt, or regret in them. It simply reveals what's already there, and they can't unsee it. This is where fear comes in, because now the questions start. Did I walk away too soon? Did I mistake their patience for weakness? Did I misjudge their worth? And notice, folks, these questions don't belong to you. They belong to them. You don't have to plant them. You don't have to say a word. Their own reflection, magnified by your silence, plants them all by itself. And here's something powerful. Epictetus said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond." Your silence proves you've chosen wisely. You've chosen not to be disturbed by their choices, not to collapse under their rejection, not to beg for their approval. Instead, you let them confront themselves. You stand grounded, and in that groundedness, you force them to face the mirror without you even lifting a finger. But let's be honest, why is this so difficult for them? Because silence leaves no escape. They can't distract themselves forever. They can't scroll endlessly, laugh endlessly, or deny endlessly. The mirror always comes back, and when it does, it strips away every excuse until all that's left is truth. And truth, my friends, is heavy. It weighs on the mind. It gnaws at the heart. It keeps them tossing, turning, awake at night. Think of it like this. Imagine a courtroom where every witness has spoken, every lawyer has made their case, and then suddenly the judge walks in. Silent. No words, no argument, no expression, just silence. That silence is more intimidating than any speech could be because it forces everyone in the room to reflect on what was already said, already done. That's what your silence feels like to them. They're the ones who already made their choices, and now the silence is the judge reminding them of it. And while they wrestle with that, what are you doing? You're at peace, because the mirror doesn't belong to you. It belongs to them. You've already moved forward, already mastered yourself. You've accepted what was and chosen discipline over reaction. That's why your silence is so powerful. It doesn't pull you down, it lifts you up. And in that strength, you force them to confront the weakness of their own decisions. My friends, remember this. Silence isn't about punishing them. It's not about proving a point. It's not about revenge. It's about standing so firmly in your own self-control that they can't help but see themselves clearly. And once they do, the truth of their choices becomes louder than anything you could have spoken. So let me leave you with this. While they stare into the mirror of their own decisions, you stare into the mirror of your strength. You don't react, you don't chase, you don't crumble. You stand still, calm and unshaken. And that contrast is what unsettles them most. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unshaken. Write it, own it, let it echo. Show yourself and the world around you that your silence is not emptiness, it's mastery. And stay with me, because in the next part we're going to dig into something even more unsettling, the fire of curiosity, the part of silence that burns brighter the more it's starved. And trust me, you won't want to miss how that fire keeps them awake at night. Number 3. The fire of curiosity. It is not what we know that torments us, but what we cannot know. That truth, my friends, is the seed of restlessness, the spark of sleepless nights. When you hold your silence, you ignite something far more powerful than words ever could. You ignite the fire of curiosity. And unlike the flames of anger or passion that burn quickly and fade, curiosity is a fire that smolders, grows, and consumes from the inside out. Think about it. Certainty calms the mind. When people know the script, when they can predict your actions, they feel in control. But the moment you break that script with silence, the certainty vanishes. And in its place, a fire that refuses to be quenched. They start asking questions they can't answer. Questions that circle like smoke, filling every corner of their thoughts. Where are you? Who are you with? Have you already moved on? Do you even care? And my friends, unanswered questions are heavier than any spoken truth. Imagine this. You're standing in a dark room with a locked box in the center. You don't know what's inside. Could be treasure, could be nothing, could be a weapon, could be a gift. The not knowing consumes you more than the truth ever could. That's exactly what your silence does. It becomes the locked box in their mind, and the more they think about it, the more obsessed they become with opening it. And here's the lie we need to break. People will tell you that silence kills curiosity, that if you don't respond, they'll forget. Wrong. Silence feeds curiosity. Silence gives it oxygen. Silence allows their imagination to run wild, to build scenarios that may not even exist. They don't need proof. They only need possibility. And possibility, folks, is the most dangerous fuel of all. At first, they might shrug it off. I don't care. I'm not even thinking about them. They might even laugh it away in front of their friends. But when the lights go out, when the phone screen dims, and when the room grows still, that's when the fire returns. They scroll through your profile, checking for updates, searching for signs. Did you post something new? Did someone else comment? Did you move on quietly while they weren't looking? And if they find nothing, the fire only grows hotter, because the absence of answers is worse than bad news. The mind hates blanks. It fills them with stories, with fears, with possibilities, and while you rest calmly, trusting your discipline, their mind runs marathons trying to make sense of what you've chosen not to explain. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, and that's exactly what you're doing when you hold your silence. You refuse to hand them control over your peace. You refuse to fuel their narrative. You refuse to give them the answers they crave, and by doing that, you create space for the fire of curiosity to consume them, not you." Picture it like this. You're sitting at a poker table. Everyone else is showing their tells, tapping the table, biting their lip, revealing their nerves. But you sit calm, expressionless, unmoved. They can't read you. They can't predict you. And because they can't predict you, they start to second-guess their own hand. They start to sweat. They start to wonder if you're holding something powerful or if you're bluffing. That's the fire of curiosity in action. It's not about what you reveal, it's about what you withhold. Now, let's talk about fear, because curiosity always leads to fear when it can't be satisfied. At first, they just want to know, but soon that curiosity twists into dread. What if you're already at peace without them? What if you've already moved on? What if you've found someone who values what they overlooked? And here's the kicker, they don't even need proof. The mere possibility burns them alive. That's why curiosity is such a powerful weapon. It doesn't require you to lift a finger. Their own imagination becomes their tormentor. And let's be real here, folks. This isn't easy for them because they thought they had the script. They thought they could predict your behavior. They thought silence was just a phase, a moment of weakness. But when the silence doesn't break, when the answers don't come, their confidence collapses. And suddenly, they're not laughing. They're not certain. They're restless, tossing, turning, wide awake at night while you're already asleep, calm and unbothered. Now, why is it difficult for you? Because the temptation to break silence is strong. You want to see their reaction. You want to feed your own ego with their response. You want to confirm that they're still thinking about you. But remember the wisdom of the Stoics. Control lies only within. The moment you break silence to chase reassurance, you hand them the keys back. You give away your discipline, and the fire you started in their mind begins to die. But when you hold your silence, you let the fire grow. You let it burn. You let them feel the full weight of uncertainty. Here's a metaphor you'll never forget. Think of curiosity like a candle in the dark. When you light it, it flickers small, harmless. But when no answers come, the flame doesn't go out. It spreads. It jumps to curtains, to furniture, to the whole house. And suddenly, it's an inferno. That's what silence does. It turns curiosity from a flicker into a blaze that consumes their peace. And the more they try to put it out, the stronger it grows. Because the only water that could quench it, your words, never arrive. And while they're trapped in that fire, you stand outside, untouched, calm, grounded. You don't fan the flames, but you don't extinguish them either. You simply watch as curiosity does the work for you. That's the discipline of a Stoic. That's the mastery Epictetus spoke of. Not controlling others, but mastering yourself. So, my friends, remember this. Silence is not the end of curiosity. It's the beginning. It's not the killer of questions, it's the creator of them. And when you stay disciplined, when you hold your peace, you give curiosity room to do what it does best, burn. Write this affirmation in the comments. I fuel the fire. Because that's what your silence does. It ignites questions they cannot answer, it burns in their mind long after the lights go out, and it keeps them awake while you rest. Number 4, the collapse of control. He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. My friends, that old truth cuts deeper than any blade. Because here's the reality, when you choose silence, you're not only taking back control, you're dismantling theirs. They thought they had it. They thought they could predict the script. They thought walking away or withholding their presence would leave you scrambling, begging, proving. But when you didn't, when you chose discipline instead of desperation, the entire illusion of control collapsed before their eyes. And nothing shakes the human mind more than realizing the power it thought it held was never real to begin with. Think about it. Control thrives on predictability. People feel powerful when they know how the other person will respond. If I push this button, they'll react this way. If I pull this string, they'll dance the way I expect. That's the game. But silence breaks the game. Silence destroys the pattern. Silence removes the strings. And suddenly, they're left staring at a chessboard where their next move no longer guarantees the outcome. That's the collapse of control, and it's one of the most unsettling experiences a person can face. Imagine being on stage in front of a crowd, reading lines from a script. You know what comes next, you know how the play ends, you know the reaction you're supposed to get. But then, right in the middle, your scene partner doesn't say their line. They stay silent. Now you're frozen. The audience is waiting. The script is broken. The confidence drains from your body because the story you thought you were telling no longer exists. That's what your silence does to them. It removes the script, and without the script, control collapses. At first, they laugh it off. They'll come back. They always do. They wait by the phone, expecting the flood of messages, the desperate apologies, the attempts to patch things up, because that's what they thought the script said. But when the silence doesn't break, when the phone stays empty, when your presence remains calm and absent, the laughter fades, the mask slips, and control begins to dissolve. They thought they had you figured out, but silence makes you unpredictable. And unpredictable is the one thing control cannot survive. Let me break another lie here. They'll tell you silence is passive, that staying quiet means you've surrendered, that it means you've given up. But the truth, silence is not passive. It's active. It's the strongest move you can make on the board. Because silence flips the weight of responsibility. You're no longer reacting to them, they're reacting to you. You're no longer trying to win their approval, they're trying to figure out why they lost your attention. And in that shift, the entire power dynamic flips upside down. Folks, let's be honest, this isn't easy for them because control is addictive. They thrive on it, feed on it, build their confidence on it, and when it's gone, the withdrawal is real. They feel restless, anxious, unsure. Nights become longer, thoughts become heavier, doubts become louder, because the more your silence stretches, the more their illusion crumbles. And when illusions crumble, people face the one thing they fear most: truth. Seneca once said, "He is most powerful who has himself in his own power." That's exactly what you're showing when you stay disciplined. You didn't allow their choices to drag you into chaos. You didn't allow their games to dictate your peace. You didn't allow their silence to force your reaction. Instead, you stayed still, calm, grounded. And that stillness, that refusal to be moved, reveals the real source of power. It was never them, it was always you. Picture it like this. They walked away thinking they'd flipped the hourglass. That time was now working in their favor. They expected you to panic as the sand slipped away, but instead, you didn't move, you didn't chase, you didn't plead. You simply sat still as if you had all the time in the world. And suddenly, they realized the hourglass was never in their hands. It was in yours. That realization crushes the illusion of control, and in its place grows doubt, fear, and regret. Here's the psychology behind it. When people believe they control you, they feel secure, but when you show them they never did, their security turns to insecurity. Their confidence turns to uncertainty, and uncertainty is what keeps them awake at night. They start wondering, did I misjudge? Did I underestimate? Did I just lose something I can't replace? And those questions eat away at them because they have no answers. And let's not sugarcoat it. This isn't easy for you either. Discipline rarely is. You'll feel the urge to break silence, to reassert your presence, to prove you're still strong. But that's the trap. Because the moment you do, the illusion of control rebuilds itself in their mind. The script resets, and you've given away the strength you held. But when you resist, when you let silence stand, you prove that control was never theirs to begin with. It was always in your hands, resting in your ability to master yourself. My friends, imagine two people in a staring contest. One blinks, one doesn't. The one who blinks feels weak, defeated, controlled. But here's the twist. Sometimes you don't even need to stare back. Sometimes simply closing your eyes, resting, refusing to engage, proves the greater strength. Because you show that you're not even playing their game anymore. That's silence, that's mastery, that's the collapse of control. And this is where the fear sets in deepest for them. They thought leaving meant freedom. They thought silence meant strength. They thought the script was theirs. But now they realize the freedom wasn't theirs. It was yours? The strength wasn't theirs, it was yours. The script wasn't theirs. You burned it the moment you chose not to follow it. And when that truth hits, the illusion of control collapses completely. So remember this, folks. Your silence doesn't just echo. It doesn't just burn curiosity. It topples the entire structure of control they built in their mind. And once that structure falls, once the dust clears, they're left with nothing but the truth that you were never theirs to control. That your peace doesn't depend on their presence, that your strength isn't tied to their choices, that you, and only you, decide how you move forward. Write this affirmation in the comments. I hold the power, because that's what silence proves. It reveals that the control they thought they had was nothing more than an illusion, and the man who holds himself steady, who refuses to react, who stays grounded in silence, that man always wins. Press that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because next we're going to step into an even deeper truth, the haunting of memories, the place where silence doesn't just shift power, but resurrects the very moments they thought they buried. And trust me, you'll want to see how that ghost walks into their nights. Number 5. The haunting of memories. The past is never where you think you left it. My friends, that one line captures the heart of what silence does. Because when you go quiet, when you refuse to chase, when you stop feeding their world with your presence, you awaken something they thought was dead and buried. You awaken memories. Your silence isn't just a pause in the present, it's a doorway that opens the past, and through it march every moment, every laugh, every look, every piece of history they thought they'd already escaped. Let's be honest, people believe they can bury the past. They think time erases it, that distractions drown it, that pride locks it away. But silence is the key that opens the lock. Why? Because silence removes the noise of the present. And when there's no new sound to fill the space, the mind reaches back to the old ones. That's the haunting of memories. At night, when they lay their head on the pillow, when the phone is quiet, when there's no distraction left, the silence breathes life back into what they thought was gone. Imagine walking through a house you once lived in. The furniture is gone, the rooms are empty, but the walls still hold the echoes. You step into the kitchen and you hear laughter that isn't there. You open a door and you remember the arguments, the warmth, the tears. The house is empty, but it's not silent. It's filled with ghosts. That's what your silence does. It turns their mind into that empty house, and suddenly, every memory they thought they left behind starts moving through the hallways. At first, they fight it. They tell themselves, "I'm over it. I don't think about them anymore." They convince themselves that the past is finished, sealed, forgotten. But silence doesn't let them lie, because silence acts like an amplifier, magnifying the smallest thought into a loud echo. That little flicker of memory, your laugh, your presence, the way you once looked at them, becomes a fire in their mind. And the harder they try to push it away, the stronger it grows. Here's the lie society sells, that moving on means forgetting, that if you distract yourself long enough, the past disappears. But the truth is, the past doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits for silence. It waits for stillness. It waits for the moment when there's nothing left to drown it out. And when that moment comes, the past doesn't just knock politely, it barges in. Your silence opens the door wide. Think about this, folks. When you were present, when your voice was there, when your energy was constant, the memories faded into the background. You gave them something new to focus on, even if it was conflict or chaos. But when you withdraw, when the noise dies down, the background steps into the spotlight. And that's when the haunting begins. They remember the way you smiled at something only the two of you understood. They remember the way you defended them, the way you made them feel safe, the way you challenged them. They remember the fights too, but even those feel different in hindsight, because silence changes the way the past is seen. What once felt ordinary now feels precious. What once felt easy to dismiss now feels heavy with meaning. And here's what makes it worse for them. Memories aren't just pictures, they're feelings. The brain doesn't just replay what happened, it replays how it felt. So when silence brings back the memories, it also brings back the emotions. And those emotions don't just pass by, they settle in, keeping them restless through the night. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the Stoic truth you embody when you stay silent. You don't allow the past to hold you hostage. You've accepted it, let it go, moved forward. But they become prisoners of it again. While you're resting, they're replaying. While you're calm, they're haunted. While you're free, they're chained to the very memories they thought they buried. Imagine a song you haven't heard in years. One day it comes on unexpectedly, and instantly you're transported. The room around you fades. You feel emotions you thought were gone. That's how memory works. And in silence, their mind plays that song on repeat. Every lyric, every chord, every line drags them back to you. They thought they hit skip. They thought the playlist moved on. But silence pressed replay. Now here's the fear that comes with this haunting. They realize the past isn't gone. They realize you're not as replaceable as they thought. They realize that time didn't erase you. It only hid you. And when silence brings you back, you return, not as a faint thought, but as a ghost they can't outrun. That ghost keeps them awake, not because you're there, but because you're not. Your absence makes the presence of memory louder. And folks, let me tell you, this isn't easy for them, because pride tells them not to look back. Pride tells them not to miss you. Pride tells them not to admit what they feel. But pride is heavy, and silence makes it heavier. Every memory weighs on that pride like bricks on a fragile wall. Eventually, the wall cracks, and when it does, regret seeps through. But here's the beautiful part for you. You don't need to remind them. You don't need to post, to prove, to reach out. Your silence does the work. The haunting isn't created by you, it's created by them. Their own mind is the projector, their own heart is the screen, their own memories are the film. And while they sit through the show, you're already living in the present, already writing a new script, already walking in peace. So let's be clear, the haunting of memories isn't your burden, it's theirs. You've accepted the past, you've moved forward, you've mastered yourself. That's why you sleep at night. They haven't accepted, they haven't mastered, they haven't faced the weight of what was. That's why they lie awake. My friends, remember this. Silence doesn't just keep them curious. It doesn't just collapse control. It resurrects the very moments they thought they buried. And those moments don't whisper. They scream. They haunt. They echo. And they won't let them rest. Write this affirmation in the comments. I am free from the past, because that's your truth. You've moved on. You've accepted. You've mastered yourself. But they're haunted by the memories your silence brought back to life. And that haunting, more than anything, is what keeps them awake at night. Number 6. The clock that ticks louder. Time discovers truth. Seneca wrote those words centuries ago, and yet, my friends, they hit harder now than ever. Because when you hold your silence, time itself becomes your ally. What feels like minutes to you stretches into hours for them. What feels like hours to you becomes sleepless nights for them. Your silence makes the clock tick louder, and with each tick, the truth they've been avoiding grows heavier. Here's the reality. During the day, they can distract themselves. They can bury their mind in work, laugh with friends, scroll endlessly through their phone. They can convince themselves that they've moved on, that they're in control, that your absence doesn't bother them. But the night is different. At night, when the laughter fades, when the notifications slow down, when the world finally grows still, that's when silence teams up with time. That's when every second on the clock feels like a hammer strike in their chest. Imagine sitting in a waiting room, no phone, no magazine, nothing to occupy you, just silence and a ticking clock on the wall. At first it's fine. A few minutes pass, you tell yourself it's nothing. But as the minutes stretch, as the ticking grows louder, you start to fidget, to shift, to grow restless. That's exactly what happens to them when you hold your silence. The longer it stretches, the heavier it becomes. And here's the lie they believed, that time would be their ally. They thought walking away would make you panic first, that the silence would drive you to break, that you'd reach out before they even had the chance to feel restless. They thought time was working in their favor. But when the hours pass, when the nights turn into weeks and your silence still stands unbroken, they realize something they never expected. Time has betrayed them. The clock isn't their friend anymore. It's yours. Picture this, folks. They pick up their phone, stare at your name, and wait. Maybe they even type a message, but pride stops them from sending it. They tell themselves, if I just wait a little longer, they'll reach out. But the minutes pass. The hours pass. Midnight comes. No message. The clock ticks louder. That pride, once so solid, starts to crack under the weight of waiting, and the longer it ticks, the deeper the cracks go. That's the torment of time. They can't stop it, can't control it, can't fast forward through it, and every tick without your words feels like proof. Proof that you're calm, proof that you're unmoved, proof that maybe, just maybe, you've already let go. That's what makes the clock unbearable. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of possibility. Now let's break another lie. People will tell you that waiting makes you weak, that patience means passivity. But the truth is the opposite. Patience is power. Patience is strength. Patience is dominance, because patience shows that you've mastered yourself. You don't need answers right now. You don't need validation right now. You don't crumble under the pressure of waiting. Instead, you let time work for you. You let silence deepen its weight with every passing hour. And that's something few men ever learn to do. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." My friends, when you wait calmly, when you refuse to break silence, you prove mastery, you prove freedom, you prove that your peace isn't held hostage by their response. While they toss and turn with impatience, you rest easy. While they keep checking the clock, you don't even notice it, because time isn't your enemy, it's your greatest ally. Think of it like this. Two people stand in a room filled with silence. One fidgets, shifts, checks their watch, unable to handle the stillness. The other stands calm, unbothered, breathing evenly. Who has the power in that moment? Not the restless one, always the one at peace. And that's you. You're the one who doesn't blink, who doesn't break, who doesn't let the ticking clock dictate your state of mind. That's what drives them restless. It's not just the silence, it's the fact that you've made peace with time while they're enslaved by it. Here's where the fear creeps in for them. At first, they're sure. They tell themselves you'll crack, you'll fold, you'll reach out eventually. But as time stretches and nothing happens, the certainty fades. Doubt takes its place. Then fear. Fear that you've already moved on. Fear that you don't care anymore. Fear that the silence they thought was temporary has become permanent. And my friends, that fear is what keeps them awake while you sleep soundly. And yes, this is difficult for you too, because silence feels heavy at times, waiting feels endless. The temptation to break it, to prove your strength, to send that message just to see their reaction, it's real. But remember what Seneca taught. Time discovers truth. You don't need to force the truth. You don't need to demand it. You don't need to rush it. The truth always surfaces, and time will reveal it without you lifting a finger. That's the discipline of a Stoic. You don't rush, you don't beg, you don't crumble under waiting. You walk hand in hand with time, knowing it always exposes what needs to be seen. While they fight it, you embrace it. While they fear it, you welcome it. And that's why time punishes them but rewards you. So remember this, the longer you hold silence, the louder the clock ticks for them, not for you. For you, patience is peace. For them, patience is torment. For you, silence is strength. For them, silence is chaos. And every night that passes without your reaction deepens the impression of your control. My friends, your silence doesn't just unsettle them, it proves something deeper. It proves that time no longer controls you, that you're not desperate for answers, not enslaved by urgency, not broken by waiting. You've mastered yourself. And the man who has mastered himself always wins. So drop this affirmation in the comments. Patience is my power. Write it, show it, own it. Let it remind you that every tick of the clock is working for you, not against you. And while they lie awake, restless, haunted by silence, you rest easy because time is on your side. Number 7. The fear of replacement. It is not what we lose that destroys us, but the thought of being replaced. My friends, let that line sink in, because when silence stretches long enough, when the echo of your absence has grown heavy, when curiosity has burned and the clock has ticked louder with every passing night, a new kind of fear enters their mind. And this fear is sharper than regret, heavier than doubt, and harder to silence than pride. It's the fear of replacement. The whisper in the dark that says, what if someone else has now taken my place? Here's the truth. Silence doesn't just make them restless, it leaves space. And space is dangerous because space leaves room for imagination. And imagination, when it collides with insecurity, is ruthless. They start to wonder where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. But then the question grows darker. What if someone else now receives the attention I once took for granted? That thought alone is enough to keep them tossing, turning, wide awake. Picture this. They open their phone late at night, scroll through your profile, searching for clues. Maybe they don't find anything. Maybe there's no new post, no new picture, no evidence of someone else. But that doesn't bring peace. It makes things worse, because the absence of proof doesn't silence the fear. It amplifies it. The mind doesn't need evidence to suffer. It only needs possibility. And possibility, my friends, is the sharpest blade of all. Think of how tormenting this is. In the past, they didn't need to wonder. You were always there, always available, always reaching out. They knew your attention was theirs, but your silence breaks that security. It forces them to face the truth that they no longer have access to your mind, your heart, or your time. And that loss of control becomes unbearable. Because if you're not giving your attention to them, then who are you giving it to? That's the question that steals their sleep. Here's the lie we need to break. People convince themselves that silence means you're stuck, that you're hurting, that you're still waiting. But the truth is, silence creates mystery, and mystery is powerful. It makes them wonder if your silence is strength, if your silence is peace, or if your silence is because someone else now fills the space they abandoned. And that uncertainty gnaws at them every single night. Epictetus said, "Freedom begins the moment we stop craving control over others." That's what you've done. You've stopped craving control over them. You've stopped chasing. You've stopped trying to explain or convince. And because you've stepped into freedom, they now feel the chains of their own fear. Your silence becomes the closed door they can't open, the locked book they can't read. And behind that door, behind those pages, their imagination writes its own story. A story where you've already moved on. A story where you've found someone new. A story where they've been replaced. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine standing outside a house at night. The lights are on inside, but the curtains are drawn. You can't see what's happening. You can only guess. And the more you guess, the more obsessed you become with knowing. That's what your silence feels like to them. The lights are on in your life, but they can't see inside. So they create stories, they imagine replacements, and those thoughts torment them more than any reality ever could. And this is where fear hits deepest, because replacement isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing significance. It's about realizing they're no longer the center of your attention, no longer the one who defines your energy. That fear cuts straight to the ego. And silence feeds it perfectly, because silence gives no answers, no comfort, no reassurance. It forces them to live with the possibility that someone else now holds what they lost. Folks, think about how ironic this is. They thought leaving gave them control. They thought silence made them strong. But now it's your silence, your discipline, your calmness that has shifted the entire balance. They thought you would chase. Instead, you stood still. They thought you would prove your worth. Instead, you proved your peace. And now the same silence they thought would weaken you is what keeps them awake, haunted by the idea that someone else might already be in your place. And let me say this, it isn't easy for you either, because discipline is always tested. The temptation is there to prove a point, to hint at replacement, to show them what they lost. But that's not necessary. You don't need to perform. You don't need to parade. Your silence already says everything. Your silence is already enough, and the more you hold it, the stronger the fire of their fear becomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's your victory. You've realized your worth is not tied to their attention, your value is not defined by their approval, and your strength is not dependent on their return. You don't fear being replaced because your worth is self-contained. And that, my friends, is exactly what terrifies them, because a man who doesn't fear replacement is a man who might already be free." So let me put it plainly, while they lie awake, imagining who you're with, you sleep peacefully. While they toss and turn with the thought of replacement, you rise calm and unshaken, because your identity was never tied to their presence in the first place. That's the lesson of silence. That's the strength of Stoicism. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I cannot be replaced. Write it. Own it. Show yourself and the world that your value isn't up for debate, isn't dependent on anyone, isn't shaken by absence. Your worth is yours, unshaken, untouchable, unmovable. And if this message spoke to you, do me a favor. Press that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with a brother who needs to hear it. Because too many men crumble under the weight of silence. Too many men chase when they should stand still. And too many men forget that their power was never in proving anything. It was in mastering themselves. Stay with me, my friends, because this is only the beginning. Silence is not weakness, it's presence. It's not emptiness, it's power. And when you learn to master it, you become the man who sleeps peacefully while the world lies awake, haunted by your calm.